Looks like there's some newer people here. Your friends?
Some of them are.
Huh?
Some of them are my friends.
Okay. So newer, yes?
Yes.
Okay. I had planned, I think I'll still stick with the plan, but I'll kind of spend a little more time explaining some of the names and things. In our Vaishnava calendar, we observe the appearance days of Vishnu forms, Vishnu Tattva forms. We observe appearance days of great acharyas in our line of succession, Shivaratri, and so many things that are in our Vaishnava calendar. So yesterday was the disappearance day of one of our great commentators in the line of disciplic succession, Baladev Vidyabhusan. So we discussed during the day today about him. And also yesterday was the appearance day of a very celebrated Vaishnavi. Some of our ladies might be happy to hear that in our disciplic line there are examples, 3 very prominent examples of super exalted female Vaishnavas or Vaishnavis who were so elevated they took the position, they were honored with the position of offering mantra, diksha gurus. And we're going to be speaking about one of them today. Her name from birth was Sachi, and later, just by her own amazing example, kind of a mystical example, she became known as Gangamata Goswamini. So we will be speaking of something about her. And the time of her birth and her life was shortly after the departure of Lord Chaitanya. So for those of you that are newer, who was Lord Chaitanya? We'll start there. When Krishna came in the end of Dwapara Yuga, as it says in Bhagavad Gita, he comes primarily for, whenever there's appearances of the Lord in this world, he comes for 3 reasons. Pritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha duskritam, dharma sangsthapanartaya. Sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna comes for those 3 reasons. And his dharma sangstha, his teachings of dharma, are found in Bhagavad Gita. And so not so long after the Kurukshetra battle was over and Maharaj Yudhisthira was installed as the emperor of the world, Krishna returned from Hastinapur back to Dwarka. That's the scene of Kunti's wonderful prayers appealing to Krishna, please don't go. Please stay. Even if it means difficulty, calamity, vipada, let me just, if you're here, when we have difficulties, you come, and you come, we can see you. So bring on the calamities, because it'll bring you, and then we can see you, and then we'll be no longer seeing birth and death. So it's beautiful prayers of Kunti. And Krishna returned to Dwaraka, and some pastimes in Dwarka for some time, and then Krishna departed this world. So he was considering, after I depart from this world, the next yuga begins. And that next yuga after Dwapara Yuga is Kali Yuga. And Kali Yuga is characterized in the Srimad Bhagavatam is manda. Manda means bad. Manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya upadrita. In short, the inclination of people in general goes down, spiritual inclination, their compassion goes down, their memory goes down, and above all else, they become very disturbed and engage in quarrel. Kali. Have you noticed? Quarrel tendencies is very strong in the age of quarrel, and increasingly and increasingly and increasingly, over nothing. To speak of it appears to be something, and so on. So Krishna was considering, in this age of Kali, how are people going to take advantage of this instruction of surrender unto me? They won't know how to. And I really want them to come to me and be free from the misery of Kali Yuga and material existence altogether. So they need to be taught how to. And who can be a better teacher than myself? So Krishna appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's this wonderful verse that describes Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Ladini Shakti Asmat Ekatmanav Api Bhuvi Pura Deha Beda. This one entity appears as two forms eternally. Radha, Krishna. One entity, two forms. Eternally manifest, like the sun and the sunshine. One entity, two forms. The source of the shine, that's the sun, is not the same as the sun, but at the same time, they're inseparable. So Radha is the Hladini Shakti, the pleasure potency, internal pleasure potency of Shaktiman, the possessor of potency, manifest in two forms. And for the purpose of fulfilling this intention or desire, of course we know the nature of Bhagavan is he has unlimited and inconceivable potencies. I'll say it again. Unlimited and inconceivable potencies. Just by his Icha, by his willing potency, everything is fulfilled. He doesn't even have to lift the little finger of his left hand to lift Govardhan Hill. He can just will it. But he performed the pastime anyways, for different reasons. For the benefit of the residents of Vrindavan, because they had a desire to see Krishna uninterruptedly, because his pastimes are such that sometimes he's with the cows and the cowherd boys, and then the residents of Vrindavan are without his association. He does his daytime pastime with the cowherd boys and the cows. And then he comes back, and the cows are mooing all night long, waiting for the sun to rise, and they can go again with Krishna the next morning. But then the residents of Vrindavan, they're with Krishna. Mother Jasoda and Nanda and the elder gopis making meal for Krishna and bathing, it's a whole thing. So they're always either with Krishna but not with Krishna during different times of the day. So they could just uninterruptedly see Krishna, be with Krishna, and be happy that way. So he arranged it by the Govardhan Leela. It's one of the things that makes that celebration of Krishna's lifting of Govardhan Hill so wonderful. It's not just circumambulating the hill. It's seeing Krishna uninterruptedly for 7 days and nights. So he has unlimited potency, inconceivable unlimited potency. He can do anything. once some reporter, no, not a reporter, a person in an audience was asking, Swamiji, is it possible, listen carefully, it's a trick question, is it possible that God can create something that's so heavy he can't lift it? The trick question is, if there's something he can't do, then he's not God, because God can do anything. So can he create something that's so heavy and then he can't lift it? Or, no, he can't create something so heavy he can't lift it because he can always lift anything. So Prabhupada's immediate answer, yes, he can create something so heavy he can't lift it, and then lift it. Unlimited and inconceivable potency. So by his unlimited and inconceivable potency, these two forms, Radha, Krishna, become one form. Krishna, with the bhava and the duty, the mood of love and the complexion of Radha. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also known as Gauranga. Gaura Anga, golden complexion, golden limbs, Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So he appeared, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, appeared to teach how to surrender to Krishna, how to manifest the highest stages of love, because that's on the other side of surrender to Krishna is Krishna's reciprocation. We'll find that in Bhagavad Gita. For those who surrender to Krishna, he not just delivers them from sin, but they become so dear to him, they become more dear to him than himself. So many nice examples. So one of his names is Bhakta Vatsala. He has such affection for his loving devotees. So that's Lord Chaitanya. Krishna himself come to show how to take shelter of him in the fullest stage of love. And Lord Chaitanya appeared in Navadvip, which is a place in Bengal, and after 24 years he accepted the order of sannyas. At his mother's request, he went to Puri because he had love for Krishna, so he was planning to go to Vrindavan, and she requested, please don't go to Vrindavan because I may never hear of you again. You're my only remaining son. You've taken sannyas. Go to Puri because the devotees from here, they go every year to Puri for Rath Yatra, and then I can at least get news of you. And maybe you'll come sometime to take bath in the Ganga. In Mahasnan, it's a very celebrated event, and maybe you'll come. Maybe I can see you again. So he went to Puri. And for 24 years, minus some travel throughout South India, and then he finally went to Vrindavan. For the second half of his 48 years was spent primarily in Puri. And so if you go to Puri, there's a group of us will be going, and a gathering, a few hundred of us, 400 or 500, will go to Puri and conduct a visit to the holy places in Puri. And we'll see the prominent vestiges of Lord Chaitanya and his associates during that time that he was there. Very prominent is the chanting of the holy name, as Lord Chaitanya gave, and other features. And one of those features is the house of Gangamata Goswamini. So she's the one we're going to be speaking about. Lord Chaitanya had principal associates, those of us that are practicing Krishna consciousness. There's this mantra, along with the Hare Krishna mantra that we regularly chant. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhar, Shrivas, that's 5. Adi Gora Bhaktavrinda, and all the other assembled, Gora Bhaktavrinda, all the other assembled devotees. So, number 4 of those 5 is Gadadhar. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, I'm holding up 5 fingers, because there's in Mayapur there's the Panchatattva deities, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Shri Advaita, and Gadadhar, and Shrivas. So Gadadhar he lived in Puri. He took a vow that he would never leave Puri, Kshetra Sannyas, and he worshipped the deity of Gopinath. Very powerful deity, Gopinath. Long story. And in addition to worshipping Gopinath, he was renowned for his recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya personally would visit him daily at the Tota Gopinath temple. Tota is a local language meaning garden. So it's a remote place in a jungly-like, garden-like place, and nice little temple, and Gopinath inside, and he would worship the deity. Lord Chaitanya would come, take darshan of Gopinath, and then hear Srimad Bhagavatam every day, for hours, from Gadadhar. So, after some time, Gadadhar had a disciple, a very respected disciple named Ananta Acharya. Ananta Acharya had a disciple named Haridas Pandit. Haridas Pandit, we find his name in Chaitanya Charitamrita as a person who was topmost devotee. And like Gadadhar Pandit and Ananta Acharya, he had a gift from Krishna of being able to speak Srimad Bhagavatam so charmingly and beautifully, and that Haridas Pandit became the spiritual master of Gangamata Goswamini, or before that it was Sachi. That's just to get a context. We'll do a little bit more, that like all these names and history. So that the time is roughly in the early 1500s or 16th century. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared at the end of the 1400s and 48 years into the mid 1500s. And so 2 generations later, Gadadhar Pandit, Anantacharya, Haridas, then Gangamata. That was the line. So she was born a princess. She was born the daughter of a king. And the kingdom of that king was in the area that is now Bangladesh, a part of Bangladesh, not the whole big country. And the king and his wife, the queen, they had no sons. They had only one daughter. And they named her Sachi. So Sachi had incredible capacity for scholarship, even as a little girl. She mastered everything very, very quickly. Because she was of royal family, she had this privilege, even she was a girl, to get this very, very special, elevated education. She learned everything very quickly. And she had this very strong attraction for God, even from childhood. Very, very special, devotional mood. When she became a little older, her beauty was astonishing. And so her mother and father were looking forward to having their daughter accept a suitable husband. Because there was no son, the system at that time was the daughter, when married, her husband would become the king and she would become the queen. But when they approached their daughter about time to get married, she was saying, I don't want to be married to anybody who was born. And she was very firm, and her mother and father died with that understanding that our daughter is not going to get married. They were very despondent. Because he's the king and he's needed, succession is needed, part of his duties. So when his mother and father left this world, she became the queen without a king. And she was very successful in ruling the kingdom. She organized everything and kept everything in good order. She didn't have to go to battle, but she knew how to do everything. And after some time, running the kingdom very effectively, she gave responsibility, delegated responsibility to different ministers with the plea that she wanted to go to places of pilgrimage. She's a very spiritually inclined person. She wanted to go, that was the external. But as she went here and there, she was not finding solace. So then her determination became, I want to find Guru and take shelter. So she went to Puri, saying, I want to go see Lord Jagannath, but she was looking for Guru. She stayed there for some time. She heard when she was in Puri, now remember the chronology, this is a few generations after Lord Chaitanya, very, very elevated Vaishnavas are living in Vrindavan. Go to Vrindavan and you'll find someone who you can take shelter of. So she went to Vrindavan. And when she went to Vrindavan, she had the opportunity to hear Haridas Pandit speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. And she was so moved. She could understand his elevated, not just erudition, but his consciousness. So she requested him to accept her as a disciple and please give me shelter. So his reply was, she took it as a test because she was princess, she knew diplomacy from a royal family. The reply was, it's not possible for you to live in Vraj and perform the austerities necessary, so I can't accept you as a disciple. Because she wanted to not just take initiation and go home, she wanted to be his disciple. So she took it that this is the outward appearance of my royal ornaments and jewelry and fine clothes. He didn't approve. I won't be able to feelingly, just as Queen Kunti's prayers say, Janma Aishvarya Shutra Shribhir Edamana Madakpuman. One's mind becomes unable to feelingly take shelter, feelingly offer prayers to the Supreme Lord, if that's one's happiness. So slowly she began to distribute her ornaments to the Brijbasis and her fine cloth, the Brijbasis, and live very simply and continue to do service at the various temples and attend the arti ceremonies and hear from Haridas Pandit. So she continued like that for some time. And then he invited a discussion with her and said, if you can continue in this way and live a life without material enjoyments and live simply as the Brijbasis live, then I can accept you. So she was very encouraged. She began sleeping by the side, this is risky, by the side of the river Jamuna, a lady, and bathing in the river Jamuna, just wearing simple cloth, and doing madhukari. She was a princess, royal opulence, going door to door, accepting alms from whoever would offer alms, and that's what she would accept. And just doing humble service. And this went on for a year. She became lean and thin, and the external appearance of the things of a beautiful woman were gone, but her beauty was nonetheless shining through. She was an incredible personality. So Haridas Pandit gave her the 18-syllable mantra, Gayatri mantra, and accepted her as a disciple. And she continued for some time in that way, serving, and from hearing regularly, because she was, her spiritual acumen was very strong, she eventually, quickly, came to understand the details, the subtleties of the Srimad Bhagavatam and its presentation, and she became very capable of speaking herself. After some time, another of Haridas Pandit's disciples, a Mataji named Vishnu Priya, came to see him. And then he, Haridas, arranged that the two would go live at Radhakund. Vishnu Priya had the same standard of chanting as Haridas Thakur. So we've been observing Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi, many of us, and at least that's the day. And it's common for devotees on Ekadasis to increase chanting. And some persons, I know, on this day, they chant 64 rounds, and some chant even more than 64 rounds. But her practice was every day 3 times 64 rounds. That's a lot of chanting. There's one devotee I'm closely associated with, has been living in Vrindavan. Husband's retired, the wife is with her husband. She chants 80 rounds every day for the past 8 years. Every day. Does some service, making garlands for Radhashama Sundar, and simple service for the deities and her home duties, and 80 rounds every day. Maintains good health, elderly, very happy person, you can only imagine. So her practice was 3 times 64 rounds. That's a lot of chanting. So they were, you could say, roommates. They stayed together at Radhakund. If you visit Vrindavan one day, may you all visit Vrindavan if you haven't already. And when you go, you'll most likely want to go to Govardhan Hill, and don't just ride a taxi around Govardhan Hill. Do Govardhan Parikrama. She and Vishnu Priya every day would do full Govardhan Parikrama, and chanting and hearing, and further study of the scripture. There's an ashram near Radhakund, by the side of Radhakund, known after her name, Gangamata Goswamini's ashram. And it's now cared for by persons from Orissa, because that's where she stayed for so long. You'll hear as we go forward with her history. And then Haridas called her after some time living in Radhakund. He said, I've received a report that the deity of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is not being properly cared for. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very elder to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you remember, he spent 24 years in Puri. The person who was the chief scholar of the whole of Orissa the king of Orissa, had a chief scholar named Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He became, although quite elderly, he became a disciple and follower of Lord Chaitanya, and he had deities. And after he departed, things went down a bit. And so the deity wasn't being cared for properly. So he, Haridas, he also was an expert pujari. He was a pujari for Govindaji, the deity of Rupa Goswami. That was one of the things that he did. So he sent her to go to Puri and take responsibility for the worship of the Damodar Shila and other deities of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So, order from Guru. Off she went. She left Vrindavan, left her dear friend Vishnupriya, left Radhakund to go do the service that was assigned to her by her spiritual master, Haridas Pandit. And those of you that have been to Puri, you know, they have really strict rules about who can do what. I don't know, for those of you that are not familiar, if you're not born in India, you can't enter the Jagannath temple. And if you're born from India, they'll ask you, what is your gotra, and so many questions. So it's standard. There's a North Indian family, Gulshan Khattar is her name before she was initiated, and her daughter, Neha Khattar. Neha's complexion is very fair. So the person's in charge of the temple, you know, what's your gotra? And she said in Hindi, they said, no, you can't come in. And then she, you know, said it in 5 different languages, and, you know, this is where I was born, and, you know, what are you doing? You can't. No. So anyway, my point is, in Puri, they're very strict about different things, with their own rationale. So it was, at that time, it was something that a lady was not to do, was worship Shila, Shalagram Shila, Damodar Shila, this particular one. But in the order of Guru, she did. And because of her spiritual elevation, people accepted. So she did very nice worship, and every morning after her worship, she conducted a Bhagavatam discussion. And her skill in speaking Srimad Bhagavatam was such that word spread. She's good. And so the classes in size grew and grew and grew. Eventually the king, name was Mahendra, he heard of this Sachi, speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, worshipper of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's Govardhan, of Damodar Shila. So he went and listened. And he was amazed at her skill. And so when he left, he was appreciating, I would like to honor her in some way. I'd like to make some gift from the treasury of the kingdom for her, just as a token of appreciation. That night he had a dream. Same night he had gone to hear her speak. In his dream, Jagannath came and said, you should give her some land near Sweta Ganga. Well, this name Sweta Ganga becomes important. If you've been to Puri, when you go to Puri next, you'll ask, where is Sweta Ganga? It's Sweta Ganga. It's a bathing place with many steps going down, and it's considered the water is none different than the Ganga. It was known, and still is known as Sweta Ganga. So he woke, and he went the next day to see Sachi and said, I'd like to give you some land. I'm prepared to give you the deed to a piece of land right now, right near the Sweta Ganga. And she said, I don't want to own land, thank you. No, very kind of you. And he said, but Jagannath instructed it. It's something I wanted, and he's given his particular instructions. So after some back and forth, after all, the order of Jagannath is not to be disobeyed, and so she accepted. And there was an ashram that's still present, and the samadhi of Gangamata Goswamini is there at the ashram. So she continued her morning classes, worshipping the deity, and in the Vaishnava calendar there's a very special day where many people from Orissa, not just Orissa, people from all over, go to Gangasagara, where the Ganga flows into the ocean, into the sea, and it's very auspicious. There's a week, and then there's a special day, Mahasnan, and to go and take bath in the Ganga is very auspicious. It's a big, like, Kumbh Mela thing. It's a big, a lot of people go. So, being the devoted soul that she was, she wanted to go. But she was given some service by her spiritual master to worship the deity, so she knew she couldn't go. She wasn't feeling sad, but she was wishing to go. So that evening, she had a dream, and it was Ganga herself appeared in her dream, saying, "Don't worry. It's very soon on that day when the bathing is to take place. You go to Sweta Ganga, which is right near where her residence was. Take your bath, and I will personally be there, so you'll be able to take your bath on that auspicious day. It's Sweta Ganga." So at night, when everybody is quiet and, ladies won't be disturbed by the big crowds of people, she went to take her bath. And then suddenly, with a big surge, the water of the Ganga rose up the Kund and carried her like a tidal wave to the Jagannath temple and inside the Jagannath temple. And beside her were thousands of other pilgrims who were happily taking their bath in the Ganga. And she was amazed at Ganga's mercy. Now, hearing all the prayers of the people reciting their prayers and offering oblations to the Ganga, the guards heard. The guards went to the superintendent of the temple. The superintendent of the temple went to the king, said, "There's this clamor going on inside the temple." And he said, "Well, immediately go and find out what it is." And so when the guards went, they didn't see clamors of people. They just saw Sachi standing in the middle of the temple room floor. And they thought she somehow snuck in and she wants to take jewels from Jagannath, valuable ornaments. She's a thief. And then some of the guards said, "No, that's not possible. She's too saintly." So they decided that they would arrest her, put her in jail, have a fair hearing, and then decide what to do. So they put her in jail. That very night, the king had a dream. Lord Jagannath challenged him, saying, "You're in big trouble. Your representative guards have arrested Sachi. It was I from my lotus feet that brought forth the Ganga to carry her here to the Jagannath temple, so I could have her association and have her desire fulfilled to take the bath in the Ganga. I arranged all of this, and you put her in jail. You go with your priests at once, release her from jail, fall at her feet, beg forgiveness, and you all take Diksha from her." The king was trembling because he loved Jagannath and is afraid of offending Jagannath. Jagannath was offended. So he got some of the priests, went immediately to the jail, found her, fell at her feet, begged for forgiveness, and told her what Jagannath had said. that he and the other priests are to take a diksha from her. She placed her hand upon his head and smiled. Lord Jagannath is very funny, she said. He has such a sense of humor. So on an auspicious day, the king received mantra diksha from Sachi, and from that day forward, she became known instead as Gangamata Goswamini. And when the king and a number of priests all became disciples, imagine what that did for the population of the kingdom. They all came to hear from her, that she gave her mercy very liberally. The king then became inspired there's two narrations that then follow it. They will finish up this description of her biography, her life. Visiting Puri was one Brahmana, very learned Brahmana, very famous learned Brahmana, and when he came to visit Puri, he went to Sweta Ganga, and when he was taking his bath at Sweta Ganga, he heard about Gangamata and her brilliance in explaining the Bhagavatam. It was not far away, so he went to hear from her. And he, very learned, elevated person, and I've come to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from you, to hear spiritual teachings from you. And he was so humble, genuinely pure and genuinely humble. She was just reciprocating with his nice quality and began explaining as she had heard from Haridas Pandit and others. And he became so moved that he stayed in Puri for some time. Eventually, this learned scholar also took initiation from Gangamata. And then another very interesting narration comes. There was one Brahmana in Jaipur who had the last name Sharma, I forget his first name. It's half the population in Rajasthan is Sharmas. So he had a deity of Rasika Rai. That was his deity. And as he was getting older, he was not able to worship the deity properly. So, and make proper offerings. So the deity appeared in his dream, Rasika Rai, and said, "Please take me to Puri. I want to receive the worship and devotion of Gangamata." So he, all the way from Jaipur, all the way across the country to Puri, he traveled by foot with his deity. And when he reached Puri, he found out where is Gangamata, and he presented his deity before her, saying, "The deity told me in a dream he wants to be worshipped by you, so please accept." And she said, "How can I do that? I live by Madhukari. I just go here and there and accept alms, and that's how I sustain myself. So I don't have the means to take care of a deity, don't have the capacity. So I'm sorry, but I can't accept. I would make an, please don't ask me to, and put me in a situation where I become an offender." So he was very disappointed. And he didn't know what to do because he has instruction from his worshipable deity. So what he did was, he placed the deity in the Tulsi garden of Gangamata and left. And then Rasika Roy appeared in Gangamata's dream saying, I haven't eaten for days and I'm very hungry. And I know you said no, but just please prepare something and offer something. I'm very hungry. And she woke up and she said, I'm in your Tulsi garden. The Brahmana, under my instruction, left me there. So she went, and there was the deity. And so she very lovingly made a very simple offering, because she didn't have much resource, and made the offering. And she felt such devotion. She then got a cloth and laid the deity to rest after he ate everything. Oh, that was an important. Everything that she made was gone. So she understood this is a real deal. That he's there's reciprocation of love. And so, as time passed, she was elderly, but she gave so much dedication to her deity. The biography says she spent 12 hours a day preparing, worshipping, making ornaments, dressing, cooking. And she passed her days that way and became very elderly, and eventually reached the stage where she couldn't continue. So she came before the deity and, with deep regret, said, I can't do this worship anymore. And please allow me to give up my life chanting the holy name, and with your form in my mind. Those were her prayers. In her dream, the deity said, you continue to worship me for a few days. I like your worship so much. And at the end of your life, you'll return to the spiritual world where you can serve me eternally. So that's what happened. She continued the worship. And she left her body. One of her disciples, a male disciple named Vaninath or something like that, continued the worship, and to this day, when you go to Puri, you may visit Sweta Ganga, and by the side of Sweta Ganga is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's residence. And on the altar is Rasika Roy. Ask the pujaris which of the deities there is Rasika Roy. That's the deity of Gangamata. The king had become so indebted to Gangamata. I was pausing for a bit. He wanted to make some special offering to her. And she said, I don't want anything, I don't need anything. My only wish is that you come to the stage of unmixed devotion to Krishna. That's my wish for you. That's what I'd like to give. But he was the king, and he wanted to do what kings like to do, is give something. So eventually it was settled every day from the Jagannath temple, on the king's say-so, 2 clay pots of vegetable, another clay pot of just some other prasad of Lord Jagannath, some currency. There was conch shells, small conch shells, for her basic necessities. Not a lot, but just something to cover her basic necessities, because that's all she would accept. And this, according to this biography, it still continued today, that the consistency of bringing to her ashram these different gifts, and of course then offered to the deities, and distributed the prasad of Lord Jagannath to others. So a very celebrated personality, and yesterday was her appearance day, we were honoring. And I want to make one other mention, and that is the Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi. Maybe some of our newer people are not so familiar. Probably you are, but in case you're not. Ekadasi comes twice a month. Ekadasi, it's the 11th day. Eka and Dasa. 1 plus 10 is 11. 11th day of the moon, from the full moon and the waning moon. Waxing and the waning moon. So that's the Ekadasi day. And according to scripture, the Ekadasi day is a very auspicious day. There's a whole story of how Ekadasi became Ekadasi, with the auspiciousness of Ekadasi. And there's a lengthy description in Brahma Vaivarta Purana and a shorter description in Padma Purana, quoted in our Hari Bhakti Vilas, about the importance of this. But out of all the Ekadasis, this one is especially important. And it's connected with, it's called Pandava Nirjal Ekadasi. It has to do with Vyasadeva served as a guru of the Pandavas and Kunti, in the absence particularly of Pandu, but Vyasadeva was intimately associated with them and gave guidance, as did Narada. So the description goes like this, particularly Brahma Vaivarta Purana. The brothers, headed by Yudhisthira, strictly observed all the vidhis, the regulations of proper dharma. And one of those is observing Ekadasi. But Bhima had a trouble of observing Ekadasi, the way that they were observing Ekadasi. And so he went to Vyasa explaining, it's very difficult for me. And it's not just because he's not austere. He explained the detail. I'm the son of Vayu. And because of that, my particular constitution, the fire of digestion, vrika, is one of the features of Agni, and it's the fire of digestion. There's 3 of them, but the fire of digestion in my system is so strong that if I don't eat, I can't fast because it's too painful. So I can, if I don't eat once a day, then it's unbearable. So how am I supposed to, on the one hand, observe religious principle when it's unbearable? Too much painful, too much difficulty. So Vyas kept saying, you must, you must, you must, you must, you must. And he kept saying, can you give me some way that I can do this? And then you say that I must, but I can't. So he then gave this, Vyas gives this explanation that if out of all the 24 Ekadasis you observe this one without even taking water, there's other regulations that are ascribed about all the Ekadasis, but if you observe this one without even taking water, then you'll receive the benefit of having observed all the other Ekadasis. He says it several times. So it has become a practice in ISKCON that we, once a year, in the month of Jyeshta, which is in India, it's one of the hottest times of the year, that we like this, if it's possible, or young people have the exception, and maybe old people too, but when possible, observe fasting completely, including no water, nirjal. And it's scriptural, it's not something imagined, it's directly in the Puranas. Padma Purana it mentions it in particular as well. For the spiritual benefit of honoring the sacred day of Ekadasi in that manner, and then there's procedures in the morning that are recommended. Giving gifts to brahmanas and breaking the fast with grain and so forth. And there's other details. One may take enough charnamrita from bathing the deity. There's the sacred water from the bath of the lotus feet of the deity, charanamrita. So just in the palm of one's hand, like the size of a few grains of mustard seeds, that much. Specific like that. And sip the water, and that's not violating the Nirjala Ekadasi. No cheating allowed. And that's something similar, some of you may know, in the Ambarish Maharaj, when he was to break the fast on the Dwadasi day, and Durvasa Muni hadn't come back yet from his morning bath. So the Brahmanas advised him, just take Charnamrita from your bathing of your deity, and you'll break the fast and not break the fast at the same time. It was a Brahmana trick. But Durvasa Muni took exception and wanted to kill Ambarish Maharaj. So that's what we've been doing, a little bit of the history behind it, and it's not just, some radical or fanatical practice. It's something that comes from the scripture, and as far as possible, one is encouraged to follow like that. And then there's great spiritual benefit that comes. So at the end here, I have some Mahaprasadam of Kishore Kishori, and some persons are fasting because it's Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi. But those of you that are not, you can take, and those of you that are, you can take it for tomorrow morning, if you like. So any comments or questions, discussion? Yes.
Hello, Swamiji. My name is Rajat.
Rajat. Rajas.
Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence here. I am definitely humbled to say that I learned a lot in the past one and a half, 2 hours. Thank you to Pastor and Komlaval as well. I just have one quick question. So about knowledge itself.
About knowledge itself. Okay.
So there is so much of knowledge around us, right? But nonetheless, we fail because of our ignorance and inaptitude, right? Where we know.
Are you reading your notes, or are you reading something from online?
Sorry.
Are you reading from your notes?
Well,
this. Or are you reading something from online?
No, this is just from my notes.
Okay.
So again, there is so much of knowledge around us, but regardless, we fail because of our ignorance and inaptitude. So how can we overcome this? Thank you.
Okay. Well, are you familiar with Ishopanishad?
No, I'm not.
You're familiar with the Upanishads?
Yeah.
Yes.
Upanishads, I've heard of them.
Okay. One of them, the first of them, of the 108 principal Upanishads, is available, translated and with commentary by Srila Prabhupada. And one of the verses, actually there's 2 verses that deal with understanding the difference between knowledge, vidya, and avidya. One needs to know the difference between the two. So there's lots of knowledge around us.
Right.
But there's lots of, under the name of knowledge, it's actually avidya. And a distinction is that which leads to knowledge of the self, the eternal soul, who is our real identity, or which is our real identity. That's vidya. And that vidya counteracts the primordial ignorance that brings us to this material world. I'm going to get to your question, but I wanted to make this distinction between the two, first of all. There's lots of knowledge around us, but that knowledge around us largely, not entirely, but largely is avidya. Because it covers the knowledge of the self. And because it's so, could you just tilt this way a little bit, because we're trying to get eye contact, you keep moving and doing the bobbing and weaving thing. Thank you. Part of the problem, a big part of the problem of not being sufficiently attracted to transcendental knowledge is the influence of avidya, the influence of ignorance. And we're attached to, and accustomed to and attached to that. There's a nice verse in Bhagavad Gita, amongst many. Krishna gives an explanation of why living entities take birth in the mature world. I'm addressing your question through this verse of Bhagavad Gita. Raga Dvesha Samutena Devandva Mohena Bharata, Krishna says. Living entities take birth in this material world, overcome by these Devandva Moha, the dualities of Raga and Dvesha. In simple language, I'm a citizen, there's a king. I covet the position of being king. That's the raga. But there's a problem. What's that? Someone's already the king. So dvesha towards the king, so that I can be the king, at least some of the time. So that raga dvesha towards the supreme is what brings one to the material world. So now, why is it that we're not sufficiently attracted to transcendental knowledge? Because of raga and dvesha. The primordial force of the original ignorance that perpetuates all other little ignorances. So the root is ignoring the supreme. Raga, coveting that position, and dvesha, a bad attitude towards one who is the supreme. To some degree, I mean, it's not 100%, because there's all kinds of mixes, but that's the force that brings us here. So now your question specifically is how to deal with that force that binds us to the material world. And although there's abundance of knowledge around us, we're not sufficiently attracted to it. Well, we're very attracted to avidya and the products of avidya, advancements of technology, and what it can do for you. And one of the things that I hear regularly from parents, I'm not a parent, but the fascination that young people have with games and digital thises and that's, and just completely get absorbed in it. There's nothing in and of itself, nothing harmful, except it becomes addictive. And it's not just kids. So I travel a lot, maybe more than what I should, but when I travel, I see people with, they've got two devices going at the same time, non-stop. It used to be with, two thumbs. Now it's two things with one thumb going on each one, and they're playing some game. And, sometimes look to see what the game is, and it's idiotic. It hurts. I'm making comment because it's addictive. Because we're addicted to avidya and the products of avidya that make our consciousness more dull and more dull and more dull. We're like, anesthetized by dullness of avidya. Solution. Well, we need the association of those that have vidya, or that their life is a life of transcendental knowledge. And that doesn't come overnight. It comes by that person also having had good association and cultivating through good association that which awakens vidya. So the most, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm staying focused on your question. I'm speaking different things, but it's still on your question. Bhakti has within it the power of transcendental knowledge. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha Janiyati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam, which means when Krishna Bhakti is awakened, knowledge and detachment are awakened. So pursuing bhakti takes care of the root of the problem. That's this raga and dvesha. And one of the most powerful means of awakening bhakti is mantra, transcendental sound. The whole of the Vedas rests upon transcendental sound. It's carried, it exists even before existence, before the creation. Is Shabda Brahman exists, spiritual sound. And mantra connects us with that. Even we're dull, even we're distracted, even we're inebriated with whatever it is. The material affinity is intoxicating. If there's proper hearing from the proper source. So there's two small things: proper hearing and proper source. But that's the cure. Proper hearing from the proper source. The purpose of that, or the effect of that, is to awaken bhakti, and when bhakti becomes awakened, knowledge awakens. It's already there.
Thank you, Swami.
Here, just a little anecdotal story. When Srila Prabhupada went to America at the age of, think of somebody you know that's 70 years old, and they get on a boat, a cargo boat, to cross the ocean to America. He had 2 heart attacks. When he got to America, he didn't have anybody's. He didn't have a phone. He didn't have an address. He didn't have any money. He had 14 rupees, which you can't use in America anyways. And he started with nothing. In other words, he didn't have anybody receiving him when he got off the boat. He said, when I walked down the gangplank, I didn't know whether to turn left or right. He started with nothing. And then eventually, Krishna's mercy, things started to happen. And the devotees in New York, the young counterculture people, became attracted to him. And they started chanting with him and hearing Bhagavad Gita from him. And there was this idea to go into the public with what they were doing in this little tiny storefront. And so they got a permit, went to a park and chanted. And they chanted for 2 hours, and there was a big crowd of people gathered around. They're like, what's this? We've never seen anything like this before. And then it's a famous event. You can, if you like, you can go to New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, click Tompkins Square Park, click, and you'll see the Krishna tree. Because it's famous for this. This is where the devotees began public chanting. So Prabhupada stood up, the crowd of people looking at him like, what's this man from Mars going to say anyway? And he said, I've not come to teach something new. I've come to remind you of that which you have forgotten. Cool, huh? So knowledge is already with us. We're just distracted. And we need teachers with some purity and thus potency to awaken what's already there. And then once awakened, it burns up this distraction of other things. The fire of transcendental knowledge, according to Bhagavad Gita, can burn all kinds of reactions of all kinds of misdirected activity that life is too much made up of. We need association of such persons, and this mantra meditation is a very powerful means to receive spiritual sound, Shabda Brahman. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the host and hostess, the Harsha Prabhu and Komala Mataji, wanted to hear about, correct me Harsha Prabhu if I'm stating wrong, why this process works in this age. I think you have already addressed, so why chanting of the holy name, why not any other process?
I wasn't clued in that that's what you wanted. I just picked a topic that I thought would be nice for everyone to hear.
I knew you would know better, so.
Well, it's not two things in response to what you just said. It's not that the message that I would like to convey to everybody this evening is this ism is better than that ism. That's not the message. It's not one of those kinds of, we've got the exclusive and everyone else is going in the wrong direction. That's not the message. Not the message. Not the message. However, there's the principle, whatever the form is, the essence is the principle. The essence is the essence. And the essence is, who are we? And we know who we are from, start with Bhagavad Gita, the elementary undergraduate ABC indication. Mamevangsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. We're jiva bhuta sanatana. We're eternal parts we're angsas of the Supreme. Tiny parts, like a spark is to a fire. We're like that in relation to Krishna, the Supreme. And we have an eternal relation, and that which awakens that eternal relation, that's the essence. And there are activities found within the Vedas that are suitable. And in this particular age of Kali, it's stated in a number of places, and all traditions, without going into the detail, all traditions have the same principle, that the names of God are within that's the all-powerful process, the recommended method for this age. Not an ism, this ism versus that ism, it's a principle. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyata, from the scriptures. In this age of Kali, that's the essence, is to achieve, to go beyond the limitation of our conditioning into the spiritual realm. The holy name is the primary means, or na asti eva, there isn't an alternative. So whatever the name, somebody may have another name. They may like Allah, fantastic. They may like Jehovah, fantastic. They may, whatever the name, fantastic. As long as it's not something that's gobbledygook and they made it up. But a name that's descending knowledge, that's what's wanted. And that, the effect of that is also not a sectarian message. It's, in principle, the desire to be in our relationship with that Supreme becomes awakened. There's a very nice verse in Padma Purana. that matches the message of, there's one verse in Bhagavad Gita that's spoken twice. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. The end ends differently, but starts with manmana. So always think of Krishna. Manmana. And the Padma Purana verse that mirrors that goes Smartavya Satatam Vishnur Vismartavya Najatu Chit Sarva Vidhi Nisedhashur Etayor Eva Kinkara. That says all the vidhis, the rules and the prohibitions of all the Vedas are kinkaras, or servants of this one principle. Always remember, never forget, Krishna. That's the principle, that's the essence. The form is not unimportant, but the form is not the essence. The essence is the essence. So that which promotes that remembrance of our forgotten relationship with the Supreme, that's wanted. And there are degrees of awakening. That's also within the scriptures. So that's what we want to encourage, whatever one's tradition or background or anything. Okay, looks like we're done. Yes? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki?
Yeah.
So this is Maha